Paul Feig, what the hell happened to you, man? You know, when I was a kid, there was this movie. I don't know if some of you have seen it. It's a cult film now. It was one of Ben Stiller's first movies. It was co-written by Judd Apatow, actually. It's called Heavyweights. It's about this kid who goes through a fat camp that Ben Stiller ends up buying and taking over, and then he's really aggressive to the kids to lose weight, so they have to like rise up and take over the camp themselves. Um, it's funny. There's a guy in it that plays one of the camp counselors. It's Paul Feig, the now famous director of Ghostbusters. I remember when I was a kid, I thought he was like one of the funniest parts of that movie. I was a big fan of his, and so I actually kind of followed him. I mean, when I say a kid, I mean I was like early teens or late, like probably 9 or 10. I was so, but that's a kid. But I was old enough to be aware to look up cast names and stuff like that. So a few years later, the show comes out, Freaks and Geeks. He met Judd Apatow on Heavyweights, and he wrote this and directed and worked on this brilliant show, one of the greatest shows you'll ever see. It only had 18 episodes. It's a lot like The Wonder Years, which is my favorite show of all time. But Freaks and Geeks is just a brilliant, uh, poignant show about life. It's really one of the best coming of age shows you'll ever see. The pathos in every episode is great. It's got Seth Rogen, James Franco, Linda Cardellini, all sorts of people before they got famous in it. You'll notice all sorts of people in that show. It's kind of the proto Judd Apatow thing. If you watch it, you'll see so many ingredients to future Judd Apatow things. I still think it might be the best thing Judd Apatow ever put his name on. Paul Feig directed The Office, plenty of episodes, and Arrested Development. I mean, some great episodes, and really helped construct the shows and how they flow as and direct and stuff like that. So Paul Feig's actually, I'd say, a pretty good television director, if not a very good one, an exceptional one at that. He's got some Emmy nominations and stuff. He knows how to direct on the small format. So I was a fan of the guy, to say the least. Then in 2011, this film comes out, Bridesmaids, which I know, critically acclaimed, nominated for 2 Oscars. Big hit at the box. I fucking hate that movie. I think that film's shit. I think that's like a painfully unfunny movie with some really good ideas from a story structure standpoint about Kristen Wiig's character and how her life is. But I think all the humor is awful. But comedy's subjective. I'll take that. Fine. Okay, I don't get why Bridesmaids is fine. Then there's The Heat and Spy, which I actually kind of like Spy, and now Ghostbusters. So we basically have like 4 Paul Feig movies that I guess have mixed to positive reception overall, because I'm not going to act like everybody loves Bridesmaids, The Heat, and all. I mean, they're popular movies, but I know a lot of people now talk shit about that movie, and I know Ghostbusters obviously flopped. So he's a hit director for sure, but we could say hit and miss, because he's had success and non-success throughout his whole career. He's had ups and downs, obviously, like a lot of people. No big deal. But man, this guy's just turned into a fucking cuck. I've never seen such a white knight fucking filmmaker. I've never seen a guy that has no reason to be the way he is. He clearly just hates men because he didn't have a father figure in his life. He never had a strong male figure, which he didn't. If you actually read about Paul Feig, he was mainly raised by his mother and had women in his life, and he didn't get along with boys in school. He's that guy at every party you go to that tells really lame jokes to make girls laugh because girls don't have a good sense of humor. Did I say it? Did I actually say that women aren't funny? Now, here's the thing. Women are funny. Of course, that's a ridiculous statement. It would be sexist to imply women are funny. Here's the thing, though. Paul Feig did this article in Hollywood Reporter that was an attempt at satire, and he did this video where he dresses up as a clown. It's kind of like a reply to the Christopher Hitchens article years ago from like '07, about why women aren't funny, but it was mainly about why men are funny through the course of evolution. That because of violence and dealing with intense situations with other men, we had to adapt, and one of the adaptations we did through that was humor. So men naturally, through thousands of years of evolution, because of what men had to go through, had to learn to be funnier. Now, you could agree or disagree with that, but at least it had some basis in science. He tried to at least explain it scientifically, because if you watch a lot of comedy and movies and stand-up and stuff, you will notice a pattern that, on average, the female comedians, it's harder to find one that stands out like a male comedian does. Now, I'm not saying that there's Lucille Balls out there and Mary Tyler. There's plenty of brilliant female comics and actresses that have existed that are a huge influence on me. But on average, if you just look at it, it's nothing to do with sexism, despite what the feminists try to say. Women just aren't as naturally good at humor, and I think a lot of that has to do with sensitivity. women get offended a lot easier than men do. And this is analytical. This is me just speaking in my day to day life. But women typically get way more offended and thus can't see humor for humor. They can't differentiate humor from their personal feelings sometimes, which I think men learn to do that as little kids. So where women, I think, probably get their emotions catered to a little bit more, which isn't a bad thing. I think everyone should have their emotions catered to, a little bit something when they're young. But they don't learn humor as well. Humor's kind of it's the Tony Stark thing. It's a self-defense mechanism, and it's not something that you can develop entirely. You're either born to be funny or not funny. But men, on average, seem to get that skill on a more regular basis than women. A lot of the great comedians, pretty much all the great stand-up comedians were men, and all the great yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, it's one of the weird things. I mean, it sounds sexist, but I can't think of any woman I'd even put close to ranking in the top 10 comedians of all time, like stand up at least. Anything else is kind of debatable, but and anyway, the Hitchens article, it may have been in poor taste, but at least like it made sense. It made sense to me. He explained very simply and with nuance and why it was the way it is. And it had some. It was funny and it was witty, and it was actually a really cool article. Paul Feig, though, he seems to not get satire in his mind. If he just criticizes Hitchens by doing everything Hitchens says and flipping it, and then writing really bullshit arguments that don't have any basis in science, he thinks he's somehow making fun of Hitchens and pointing out the flaws in Hitchens' paper. When in fact, it just makes him come off like a white knight asshole who's trying to build women up and put men down. Like the Hitchens article, at least, was trying to make women understand why sometimes they can't fit in this comedic world because it is ultimately comedy was defined by men, whether you like it or not, but why they have a hard time adjusting to it, maybe the same way. Paul Feig here is basically just saying that, well, you know what? In my mind, women are funny, and what? Fuck men, and men who have that opinion are assholes, because I like women comedians, and they make me a lot of money because I make these movies that cater to women. They're for female audiences and all that stuff. And okay, dude, cool. You make a bunch of money off women going to see your shitty movies. That's fine, dude. I don't care. But this was in very poor taste. Christopher Hitchens is dead. He's one of the great intellectuals that we've had in recent years, and to even have this at the beginning with apologies to the late Christopher Hitchens, whose 2007 essay "Why Women Aren't Funny" elicited outrage. The Heat director Paul Feig rebuts the myth of male hilarity. Now he has this video where he puts on a clown outfit and he goes around all these really talented female comedic actresses and just kind of panders to them and does this really boring ass video because he's not funny. Maybe Paul Feig is making a point because to him men aren't funny. It might be because he's not funny and he can't make men laugh because he just is really shitty at telling jokes. So maybe in his mind men aren't funny because he's not a funny guy, which makes sense. You were really unfunny, Paul Feig. That video, if you get to watch it, is painfully unfunny, which this article is too. Let's start here. Poor men. You hear them at the office, in restaurants and bars. Their brains filled with meaningless facts about sports cars and electronics as they entertain friends with their endless jokes about genitalia and bathroom activities, not to mention their humorous accusations as to the sexual orientation of their conversation partners. Okay, let's break this down. Now, whether satire or not, I don't even get this first point here. Meaningless facts about sports. Why is it meaningless to know things about sports and cars and electronics? If you actually know things about cars, you can actually probably fix your car and work on your own car, and you don't have to give hundreds of thousands of dollars to fucking garages. Knowing about electronics is something that's really good to know. Yeah, I don't even. That's idiotic to even say. It would be better off for you if you knew about computers and your phone and technology. I guess knowing stuff about sports is not that big of a deal. It's kind of pointless, but okay. And then this endless jokes about genitalia and bathroom activities. Okay, every movie you've made's had very filthy potty humor. You do some very juvenile humor. Your movie Bridesmaids, the biggest set piece is Melissa McCarthy like shitting in a sink or something. Like they're all puking and shitting. Like you do very foul, gross humor with women. That was part of your gimmicks with Bridesmaids. Like here's women doing dirty jokes and humor jokes and like I don't even get your point here. You do this kind of humor in all of your movies. I remember in Spy, one of the biggest jokes is Melissa McCarthy pukes on a guy. So you do that all the time. That's one of your big fallbacks is to fall back on genitalia and bathroom activity. You know that queef joke you did at the beginning of Ghostbusters. But whatever, Paul. The word dick, balls, and ass. Okay, he's bringing this up, and he's basically saying that men use these words as an anchor for attacks to express the purpose of making one another laugh. They seem to be having such a great time that you'd feel like a monster alerting them to the one unfortunate fact: men just aren't funny. Okay, once again, all Paul Feig's movies have a large amount of swearing and say those words, dick, balls, and ass. And yeah, he falls back on. In fact, it's funny. The one movie you made, Paul, where you didn't have an R rating to fall back on swear words and foul humor and stuff like that, that was the one that bombed. So it seems like it might be the only gimmick you have, my friend. All right, let's see. Oh, sure, there's men that truly make us laugh. None come to mind at the moment, but I know history's provided us with a few. Let me see here. But in general, the male species' sense of humor seldom rises above the enjoyment of watching one of their own take a swift shot to the testicles. I mean, I guess I think most people find that funny, seeing someone get hit in the testicles. That's just a staple of comedy, my friend. That's like slipping on the banana peel. Let's not knock a classic here. It makes sense. Men are genetically programmed to hunt and gather. It is why they must. It is them who must impregnate the herd and protect the collective. And so it's only logical that their brains would need to possess lower humor standards in order to pass the hours entertainingly with their cohorts while stalking their night's dinner or standing guard against the enemy. That makes no fucking sense. Like even a satire, if you play Hitchens that's not good satire because you're not actually pointing out anything with that. It's just a stupid statement. You're not pointing out a flaw or some kind of point from Hitchens' article. You're just saying something that makes no sense. Men genetically programmed to hunt and gather, so they have to set a lower standard of humor to pass the hours by. That's the complete opposite. Because the men were hunt and gatherers, they have to set a good standard for humor because they have to go through more humor. Women aren't going to set a higher standard of humor because they're not out there, because women back in the day weren't out hunting and gathering. They were somehow funnier. That makes no sense. Um, that impossibly high standard would leave them in such despair. Oh, sorry, I didn't finish that part. Uh, Oh, I guess. Imagine if they had to amuse their fellow warriors with jokes and banter that were actually funny. That impossible high standard would leave them in such despair that they would become easy prey. Yeah, Paul, imagine if you had to make a good movie out of a famous IP franchise where you didn't pander to feminists and women. That'd have been cool too. Okay. I'm just sorry. Okay, so nature has provided humankind with two bad biological safeguards: an intellectual anomaly that allows males to believe that they and their friends are funny. I'd actually say that applies to females more than men. I actually think groups of females are much less funny when they think their friends are funny. Like, I mean, this is analytical. Once again, this isn't a scientific fact, so I'm not going to say it's true, like 100% true. But in my experiences, you're hanging out with a group of guys, and there's one funny guy in that group. That guy's usually pretty fucking hilarious, or at least knows how to play to that crowd. I've hung out with girls who are like, oh my god, my best friend's the funniest fucking girl. Look at these vines my friend made, and it's the most unfunny shit you've ever seen. So I don't know if I totally agree with that point at all. I think it's actually the opposite. I think women to me are those people who play Cards Against Humanity because they're not funny in real life, so they have to play a card game to put words together to make them laugh because they don't know how to tell jokes or be funny. Like every time I play Cards Against Humanity with people who are actually funny, they fucking hate it because the game's built to make people laugh who don't seem to understand how to be funny. At least in my opinion. I don't think it's a bad game to play, but most of the people I know who play it are the least funny people on the planet. Um, but whatever. So nature's provided humankind. Okay, and two, a survival instinct that impels women to laugh at men's jokes. As long as the men feel good about themselves, no matter how delusionary those feelings may be, the tribe will continue to function. Yeah, because no man laughs at women's shitty jokes because she's hot. No man ever puts up with a hot girl's bullshit, or not even a hot girl, just a girl he wants to get her attention. I don't know why it said hot. A horrible looking girl can get that kind of attention. But whatever. I don't care. You like what you like, but still, yeah, women don't laugh at men's jokes. Not now. There is something to be said that women know that men don't like being put down, so they try to be sensitive to men's emotions because they know men don't like being challenged, especially by women. I get that. There is something to be said about that. That would be an interesting point. The problem is the condescension in Paul's statement that women laugh just to make men feel better It's really silly because it implies that somehow women get to define what makes something funny. If a man can't make women laugh, then he's not actually a comedian or anything. He's not funny because the woman didn't give him approval. Um, Women actually had to fight to be in comedy against men who dominated it. So the men did set the standard, and then women brought a different perspective. Women never in history have set a standard for comedy. Never have they been the basis of what's funny or not funny. They've never been the top tier that we have to go to. That may sound like a sexist statement, and it probably was throughout history. Women probably got really fucked over to where they couldn't be funny. But don't try to act like women are up here and then we're down here, and I have to get up to their wit level, intellectual level to be funny. I have to be classy and witty because all your movies with all this brilliant dialogue, like where the women call each other bitches and assholes and stuff, that's brilliant. That's just like 1940s great snappy witty dialogue from old Hollywood, Paul. Which funny if you go watch those old Hollywood movies, all the women in them are actually written brilliantly, and usually have great dialogue and are very funny. But it's funny. I've been watching all these old Hollywood movies recently, and I've noticed one pattern, which is really weird, is that the women back then are better representations of strong female characters than any modern Hollywood movie I've seen. And it's funny, the women back then are very feminine. They like strong men, but man, there's some intense dialogue. The dialogue is like sex in those movies. And definitely go back and watch some of the like just the 30s, 40s, 50s. Like some of the female characters in those movies are just fucking brilliant. Especially something like All About Eve. I think All About Eve is one of the best movies I've ever seen showing you women, different kinds of women, what it's really like to be a woman. My actual experience with women, not this modern movie thing where they're all badass action heroes that can kick any man's ass, which, I think is just it's fun to watch, but it's hard to believe sometimes like this 120-pound girl's taking on like giant muscular men. It's hard for me to buy that. As much as Ellen Ripley being a badass because she's smarter than everyone else in Aliens, Ripley's not more tough than anyone in Aliens. She's just more practical and commanding and understands the situation better. That's what makes her a strong character. Her femininity is still there, but she overcomes it. The problem with a lot of movies today is they throw the femininity out the window and it's solely a female character. It's basically written like a man because these guys don't know how to write women anymore. They don't actually want to write women. They want to write women that are men because they only really care what men think, how men view women. Paul Feig's a perfect example of this. He won't make a movie with a balanced viewpoint for men and women. He'll always be skewed to the female side more because he wouldn't dare even attempt to make a movie from the male point of view because he doesn't fucking get it. He's so out of line with being a man and men's humor and men's sensitivity that he just can't even talk about, which is weird because Freaks and Geeks has great scenes with the male characters, so I don't get that. Okay, so is modern society now ready to transition away from the myth of male hilarity? After all, today's world has erased most of the survival needs that once required a woman to inflate the comedic self-worth of the men around her. Yeah, sure. That's what it was. Women have always been laughing at men's jokes to make them feel better. Grocery stores, police departments, and virtual fertilization perform the functions of one reserved for her Y chromosome counterparts. The 21st century woman is finally free to reveal her comedic superiority and inform her penized and sorry, this mask is hard to see through. Inferiors that they will never again be permitted to make that in my pants joke. I guess. Alas, women's evolved nature, along with their desire to avoid the dystopian nightmare of men trying even harder to be funny, caused them to withhold the soul crushing revelation of masculine jocular inferiority. But many more women now also will continue to follow bravely in the footsteps of these pioneering females who elicited laughter before them, making societal harmony in the name of making the world a more hilarious place. Yeah, the world's funnier because of women. Women are just fucking hilarious. Feminists right now, BuzzFeed, Lacey Green, SJWs, Amy Schumer, Lena Dunham. These are the funniest fucking people on the planet right now. They're so goddamn hilarious. Girls is the funniest fucking show. Yeah, all the best comedy in the last 10 fucking years has been. Fuck you, dude. Seriously. Fuck you so much, Paul Feig. Like, all the stuff I said nice about your earlier heavyweights, and also, fuck you, dude. I bet if I hung out with you on a set for 10 minutes, I'd be so fucking annoyed by you. Holy crap. So hail to thee, funny women. Continue to remove the bushels from your bright and uproarious lights, and we in the know will laugh politely as the funny men as we wink to one another behind their desperate but well-meaning backs. It's just the right thing to do. Yeah, you're gonna wink behind their backs while you sit there and you wink with women, because you're all laughing that this man's telling a joke. It's so funny. I guarantee you that man's telling a joke and it's hilarious, and you just don't get it, and you're an idiot, and you don't get comedy, and the women you're sitting with, probably Kate McKinnon and Leslie Jones, don't understand comedy either, and they're like, oh yeah, yeah. Um, you're basically lucky that Melissa McCarthy wanted to work with you and she turned you into a hit. That's how I feel. Like Kristen Wiig wrote a script and came off SNL. Melissa McCarthy was coming off TV, and you got them at the right time, and you had a hit movie. And basically, you've just been reaping Melissa McCarthy's comedic talent. You've been feeding off of it. You've used her um over and over again to have hits. I don't know much of it's you, Paul. I really don't. I don't know. I mean, when you write something like this, where I see you felt satire, he felt writing something funny. This really was a humorless article. It was very pointless, and it's just another pandering thing to feminists and women. Like, god damn, dude, stop it. You just hate, man. I mean, you make a movie, you make this Ghostbusters movie, you make all the male characters shitty, and then you have articles like this that you're gonna say was meant in good humor, but really is obviously you with an agenda. You clearly have a fucking agenda. The movie had an agenda. I mean, dude, why do you have this agenda? Why do you want to put men down to build women up? Why not just build women up and let them be funny and not worry about the men? Instead, you only seem to care what men think about this because you want men's approval because you never got it. Well, guess what, Paul? You're not going to get it by being a fucking dick, dude. Like, I'm sorry, you got to make movies for everyone. You don't act like you care when you don't. Either come out of the closet, admit you're gay, dump your wife, go be gay with Brett Ratner, who I hope is also gay, because you two need to be a power couple of hackiness, and just never work on a movie again. Please, just please quit making movies, or go back to television. Go back to where you were strong. I mean, I don't know. This just drives me nuts. I'm so sick of Paul fucking Feig. I'm so sick of this goddamn thing. No, this isn't a Ghostbusters video. I'm not making this just about Ghostbusters. This is about him. This is a guy that I used to think was really talented and funny, and this just shows you how the feminist SJW movement has really killed comedy and has really hurt just how we can even talk about these things. Because the fact that Hollywood Reporter would even have an article like this that's just there basically for bullshit reasons, just to get clickbait. That's all this is. It's clickbait. Um, and it's so insulting. Christopher Hitchens dead, and Paul Feig waits till after because he knows he would have got destroyed. Hitchens would have replied to this. I mean, it's so laughable. It's I mean, it's just it's a kid trying to play chess with a genius. It just doesn't work, man. I mean, you're not a comedic expert or intellectual. You're not high enough in any kind of way to even write something like this to even make some kind of point about this, Paul. In fact, I'd say you're one of the most uninformed people about humor that I could say is out here right now. I'm not saying you don't have years of experience, but right now you are one of the. I mean, after Ghostbusters, you have no right to talk about comedy or what's funny or not, or what makes men and women funny, because you couldn't even make audiences like your fucking shitty movie. Okay, dude, you don't fucking know what you're doing. You don't know what you're talking about. You're fucking you're just your typical white guy feminist. I have to kiss all women's asses, and everything I do is to make women happy because I want women to love me because women love to get their asses kissed. I mean, it's one of those things I fucking hate about feminists and so many women today is that they have this entitlement. They want everyone to kiss their ass. And if you can criticize men openly and attack them and break down everything that it is to be a man, but if you point out any kind of flaw in being a woman or any kind of bad experience you have with women, you're automatically now a misogynist or an asshole because women hate they hate criticism, they hate being attacked, they hate flaws being pointed out instead of working on them. And this is a perfect example of this. Paul Feig just can't make fun of women or point or admit that Hitchens may have had a point. He can't really do anything without writing these stupid arguments, these points that make no sense. He just writes stuff that doesn't make any sense. It has no basis in science. He's just trying to say it as he knows it'll make women happy. And he acts like he's fighting for something, but really, women aren't being held back in movies. Women aren't being held back in comedy. Nothing in the Hollywood industry in that department, at least being a megastar, is held back for women. You could argue there's other departments women are held back in Hollywood. I could see that, but certainly not being a leading actress in a comedy or on a TV show. That hasn't been an issue for, quite frankly, I don't know if it was ever that big of an issue, but it hasn't been a big issue for a long fucking time. I mean, so many shows today have female leads. I mean, New Girl, Veep. I mean, just I could go down a list of a lot, but like a lot of big shows now have female leads in their comedies. So that's just I don't know what you think you're fighting for. Basically, you make men look bad because you're the worst representation of men because the worst men are the men that think that women have to give them approval or define their masculinity. So your view of masculinity in men is skewed because it's only based off what women tell you they're a female perspective, and you never really think about the male perspective. This isn't mansplaining. This is like Paul Feig like vag-splaining. Like he's trying to write like a woman to fight for them because he wants a vagina so bad. Dude, okay, I'm sorry you had to do this stuff in high school to get laid because you weren't cool enough or probably masculine enough to get women. It sucks, dude. It sucks being a dork in high school. I know, man. It's tough being a nerdy kid. It's tough when you can't get along with other dudes. I know, Paul. It's tough, dude. I've had it too. But when you put down a whole audience, a whole male audience, which resulted in your movie bombing because you wanted to call men all misogynists for not liking your shitty trailers, you don't care. You're just the same Hollywood asshole. You're making movies for millions of dollars with actresses that are millionaires. You're making these huge movies, and you somehow feel like you get to talk to us about morality or men and women. You somehow get to talk down to men because of who the fuck you are. No, fuck you, dude. You're a joke right now. You've turned yourself into a stereotype. I mean, there's jokes about you now. I mean, every time I watch a bad Ghostbusters review on Red Letter Media or something, and they use clips of you, it's so easy to mock you now because you come off like such an idiot that's just trying to get women's approval. You didn't used to come off that way. I think it's all just a marketing scheme because you know your movies kind of suck, but if you can convince women they're funny, and you win them all over, and you can get females to come see your movie because they love Melissa McCarthy, then you'll be like, yeah, see how good I am? But Paul, that doesn't mean you're funny. That doesn't mean that you're an expert now on the shit because you had a few hit movies. I mean, nobody's really right or wrong about comedy. Ultimately, yeah, it is subjective. And Hitchens' article, sure, it was probably off too. I mean, I'll give you that. Hitchens' article was probably off too. He was, it was in poor taste. There's plenty of funny women, but Hitchens kind of knew it was in poor taste. He had fun with it. Paul, you're pretending you're having fun here, but deep down the inklings of your sexism towards men is really there. And that's my issue with this. This wasn't satire, this wasn't funny. It was simply an attack disguised as something else. And that's Paul Feig's whole career. All of his movies have an agenda, but he disguises them under being a big hit comedy. And that was ultimately what made Ghostbusters flop was people saw the agenda and didn't buy into the bullshit that it was just a really funny, great reboot of Ghostbusters. You've been called out for this, so now you keep trying and trying and trying to back up this big argument that men are always trying to put women down. So you have to fight for them, and you can't just accept that you don't know, you don't have the comedic sensibilities to get one another audience. You don't know how to get men to like your stuff, which makes you a limited comedic talent at this point, that you don't know how to get that audience because you've given up on it. That's not good, Paul. You're never going to grow comedically. One of the funniest things in Spy was Jason Statham, right? Jason Statham was really funny in that movie. Paul, men and women can be funny together. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to put the men down and make them dumb characters and make the women the ones who save the day. They can do it together, dude. Men and women, why couldn't a male and female Ghostbusters team work together? Like, you didn't get, that's the only reason we hated the whole idea. It's like, it has to be for women. Why? You never gave a good reason why it had to be for women. That was my issue. Why didn't you cast men or look at other men? You can see the original movie didn't do that, but those guys were all friends, and that was their concept. This is an IP that you had no involvement in the creation of. You did not create Ghostbusters. So when you come in and like, oh, we're just gonna put women in this, that's just a gimmick, dude. You have to make a reason for that. The original film, them being men wasn't a gimmick. It was just their characterization. It was irrelevant what their gender or race was. It didn't matter. You made it matter here. And to me, when you make the political point more of the heavy side than the comedy, you're no longer someone who's viable in the comedic world because you've made the same mistake that plenty of female comedians and plenty of women out there that aren't funny make. Now, once again, I'm not saying all women are. I think there's plenty of fucking funny women out there. I'm not saying all women aren't funny. I'm just saying the ones that I met that aren't funny in my life experience and that I've seen that aren't funny, been a lot of stand-up shows with unfunny women. It's because the personal points come across way more and not well articulated enough to mix with the comedy. You know, Richard Pryor was like a very devastating, depressing, raw guy, but his comedy always came out first through that. The humor was to fight the pain. It's like Paul Feig has all this pain and hatred towards men, and he doesn't know how to channel it right. So he tries to channel it through these female-driven movies to kind of put men down and try to change how we. It's Lena Dunham's idea. I'm going to change your views of sexuality by showing my naked body. He thinks if he keeps making these female comedies, he could just make it bigger and bigger until he can just take over Ghostbusters, and then every movie has women in the leads. It doesn't work that way, Paul. That's not equality. Um, that's not equality at all. That's you wanting the world to be the way you want it to be, to cater to you because you know your humor sensibilities and what makes you laugh and feel good relates to women because you don't understand men. And that's fine. But cut the bullshit, man. Like, just make movies that are funny. Don't have anything else going on beyond that. You're not an artist. You're not this deep artist. You may have been at one time when Freaks and Geeks came out and it was a brilliant show. You've lost that, okay? You're no longer that guy. Just try and be funny. Don't try and talk about the shit. Don't try and reply to Hitchens, who you have no right to even reply to. Don't try to act like you're this intellectual or anything. Like, just stop, please. You're making yourself look like a fucking asshole, dude. Like, this is Reddit tier. This is BuzzFeed tier. This is Tumblr. This is everything so lame about the internet and so much comedy today. And you're just going right into it because you don't have anything else. Paul, like, goddamn, dude, just write some fucking jokes. Like, just try to be funny. I mean, your whole thing is like, hey, I'm the quirky guy director, directs women. I mean, his interviews where he talks about the movie are some of the dumbest fucking interviews. It just seems like he always says he laughs on the set and he has to walk away because he just can't stop giggling at all the improvisation. He's just such a big cackler. Like, what? Everything about Paul Feig right now annoys me. Every time he talks, his mannerisms. It's funny, those things I used to find hilarious. I used to watch Heavyweights as a kid, and I'd be like, man, that guy's so funny when he dances to Love Machine. Now I wonder if I watch that movie, I just fucking hate him the whole time because I just think about this shit. This article is one of the dumbest things I've read in a long time. It's really got no point. He basically just wrote it to attack Hitchens without any kind of basis to really attack. He kind of wrote it out. It seems like it took him like 3 minutes, and it's boring. It's a boring article. Yet I wasted over a half hour on it. But please, Paul, this is my creed to you. Like, you're not funny. Stop trying to tell me what's funny and not funny. You have shown over and over again that you're not funny. You just happen to be a decent director, and you get really funny actors and actresses to make your shit better. So this is my thing. Why Paul Feig isn't funny? This article. That's why Paul Feig isn't funny. Just read it, and you'll see every reason why this guy's not funny, and it's a perfect way, just in his own words, to show why he isn't funny. He's basically just admitting it here that he's not funny. So yeah, that's all I got to say about this.